Okay, so today's video is an extended video on once a month on the second Saturday of the month. I do what I call an herbal hour, and I usually focus on a theme. And today we're going to be talking about herbal medicine for children and elders. And in herbal medicine, we often think of the seasons of the year. And in children, they're in the springtime of their time here. And like plants, we're not perennial, we're annuals. So the winter time is basically the time of elders. So I decided to combine elders and children because they often can use the same herbs. We have to be a little careful with both of them, more so than with adults. And so we're going to focus on some gentle herbs that can be used by both. And then there's some specific things. For example, elders take medications, and so you have to be careful about um, using medications with children, with elders. So what herbs are safe for children? Well, if an herb has no toxic effects on an adult, it should be safe for a child age 2 or older. We are going to talk about some infant supports as well, but basically these are for children between the ages of 2 and 12. So you want to be more cautious with children under 2, but you can still use the same herbs. You just down dose it. And you can do like a couple of drops more often, and their system can handle more frequently than a bunch at once. So they do not do well with harsh acting remedies, things that are spicy or strong in flavor or in aroma, if we're going to be talking about essential oils. So if you're interested in learning more, if you want to become herb specialist, I hope that you email me, Dr. Mary at bornforhealth.com, and we can chat about it, and I can give you some references. I'll also be including some book references that I felt were very beneficial when I was raising my children. So some general guidelines: don't use herbs that are extremely bitter, astringent, or pungent. Also avoid herbs that are strongly hormonal. There are some herbs that are specific for supporting estrogen and progesterone and testosterone. And generally speaking, if you use a little bit in a formula, it's not a big deal. But if you use a lot of like black cohosh, it can be affecting their hormones. And this goes for food like soy. Soy is not something that is recommended for young boys. It is okay if you're doing non-GMO and a child can't tolerate milk, then soy milk is often recommended as long as it's organic. So you need to take into consideration, your birth sex, so to speak. So use herbs with food like kosh action that can be eaten as foods or are used in food. In my Tuesday classes, I've been taking a single herb and talking about these single herbs that we use in culinary. So we've gone over ginger and garlic and things that you normally would find in a culinary kitchen, and they're fine to use, and they have qualities that can support health. So the best remedies are gentle aromatics, mild alternatives, mucilaginous herbs and fruits, and we'll go through these different herb types and what we can use them for. So if an herb is really nasty tasting to adults, it's probably not going to be the best choice for kids or elderly. Children will instinctively shy away from things that they feel that they don't want. They have very good instincts about that. It isn't until 3, 4, 5 that they start balking at different foods. Most of the time, between the ages of 2 and 4, children are very experimental, especially if you make it appealing. So they, in fact, will crave things. So oftentimes you can leave like glycerin or syrup by a child with a dropper, and they'll want to take drops of it. It's really interesting how they will go for what they feel is going to be helpful. Done this with echinacea, catnip and fennel, a bunch of different herbs. And of course, bone broths are extremely healing. You can add different things to them. You could do like garlic, and you can add onions, which have beneficial elements in them. The mushroom powder that the company I love, Nature Sunshine, is really helpful for the immune system, especially for elder people. And you can put that in bone broth, stir it up. You can add collagen to help strengthen the tissues of the body. And there's a lot of things that you can add to bone broth and smoothies to increase the nutritional potential of a food. I love adding curcumin and that mushroom powder. Curcumin makes chicken soup this beautiful golden color. And so there's a lot of things that you can add to foods that are healing and beneficial. So getting children and elderly to take herbs may sometimes be tricky, but I'm going to give you some suggestions, and hopefully you'll be able to write these down. I do have a PDF that you can email me if you want to have the handouts for this class. I'd be happy to share those for free to you. So herbal teas are one way. A lot of times you can add pleasant tasting herbs to hot water and make a tea out of it. You don't necessarily have to sugar it up. A lot of the herbs are kind of sweet tasting anyways, but if a child is over the age of 2, it's perfectly fine to add in a little honey. In fact, for soothing sore throats, and that honey is very beneficial. You can use any herb to make a tea. You just open up 3 or 4 capsules and put it in the hot water and let it steep. You can run it through a fine strainer or a coffee filter if you don't want the grittiness of the herb. And the other things that you can sweeten it with is glycerin. So if an elderly person has diabetes and they are looking for something sweet, glycerin is a really good sweetener for either hypoglycemic or high blood sugar, because it doesn't seem to create an insulin response. Raw sugar is, if you're going to add sugar, do raw sugar, as it has some minerals in it that make it beneficial. Stevia and xylitol are substitute natural sweeteners that, and there's something about monk fruit that is being investigated and researched, and they're finding that this fruit is very sweet and 1-to-1 ratio like sugar is. So it's a good way. I've made teas with the children and little ones. If you just give them little teaspoonfuls at a time, you can even put mild tea into a baby bottle and have the baby sip on it. If you have indigestion, some light mint tea, you just dunk the tea leaves in and out, not strong at all. Don't steep it for any time. And that sometimes can be very settling for a child if they are having stomach distress. We'll talk about some catnip and fennel and other things that are really beneficial for digestion in just a bit. So I want to talk about glycerates and syrups. These are things that you can make yourself. There are videos available on making glycerins and syrups on stephenhorn.com. So glycerin is a non-toxic, and make sure you get organic. It is a vegetable sweetener. It is sweet, so it helps cover up the taste of herbs without using sugar. It also preserves herbs fairly well, so you can make a glycerate. I've had glycerates last 3 and 4 years if I put them in a dark bottle and store them in an area where the sunlight won't deteriorate it. I use a 60% glycerin and 40% water and add it to the dried herb. And then I put this in a double boiler. And when the water comes to boiling, you put it to simmer and you let it simmer for an hour, sometimes 2. Now, if you're using flowers and leaves, an hour is generally enough. But if you're using something like bark or hard material, you'll want to make it go longer because it takes more to extrude that. Some people will add a little witch hazel in that bark material to help draw out more. I really prefer glycerates to alcohol-based, and we'll talk about that in a minute. Syrups are water decoctions that are thicker than glycerin, and you use a little bit of it. You use a 50-50 mix of water and honey or sugar. So using tinctures, not my favorite. I don't like giving children alcohol. I would prefer to give them a sweetened tincture that I know that they're gonna like. But there are some, like I said, roots and bark that you have to use alcohol to actually draw out the ingredients in those tougher fibrous elements. And you can burn off the tincture, the alcohol in the tincture. Some people say that putting a couple of drops in boiling water, letting it cool, and then giving it to the child is helpful. But you know, glycerates, man, just grab the bottle and and then you're done. It's so much easier. So, excuse me. You can mix herbs with food, and my grandson Zachary was a champ. There would be sometimes 12 to 15 different herbs in his applesauce, and he would just eat it down. He did this until he was about 12. Then he could swallow capsules and make it easier on his parents. They would pierce the omega oil and squeeze that into the applesauce, open up capsules, crush different, like the vitamin D, and it works really, really well. If you have a bunch of liquids that you're adding, you can do like a cup of this applesauce and then dole out in spoonfuls, excuse me. got to drink our water. So some of the things that you can put it in, like hot cereal or applesauce, yogurt, even a spoonful of honey. Now, under 2, it's not recommended, but applesauce, by the time they're 6 months old, they're sometimes into eating applesauce, and it's a really great delivery system. So I shy away from fruit juices. I think that the content in the juice that is too high in sugar, and making smoothies is an excellent way, because then you can be adding protein as a buffer. A lot of smoothies are flavored. You can make banana smoothies and all different kinds of fruit flavored smoothies to cover the taste of fairly nasty tasting. I mean, like my grandson used to take curcumin in his applesauce, and he didn't think much of it. Another cool way, and you might want to take a screenshot of this one, is a recipe for making herbal nut butter balls. And this is a great way. A child can be eating it like a snack, and you can add like curcumin, you can add spirulina, different herbs that actually child probably would not eat on its own, but you can cover up the taste of it. If they can do peanut butter, that's fine. Otherwise, almond butter or cashew butter or some of the other butters that are pretty good to eat. You can put flax in it. There's a lot of different ways that nut butter balls can be used, and you can add nutrition to them to make them more palatable. So adjusting the dosage for children, assume that the adult dose in most bottles, they base the dosage on 150 pounds. So if an adult elderly weighs more than 150 pounds, you might want to increase the dose just a little bit. Or if they weigh less, I mean, there are some elderly that weigh about 100 pounds, you can adjust the dosage down. And if a person weighs like 75 pounds, you would use half the dose recommended on the bottle. And so this is also something you might want to take a screenshot of. It helps you to determine what the recommended dosage is for the weight. You do want to consider weight when you're dosing and not just go by age. And like I said, in children, they really prefer frequent rather than large doses. 5 to 10 drops of a glycerin or tincture. You can do it every 15 minutes until you see an improvement. Oftentimes giving the body the ability to utilize what you're giving it, and then give it a little more and a little more. So oftentimes you'll see results within an hour or two by doing these frequent smaller dosages. Now, in elderlies, you have to be careful of medications. It is really important for you to go online, find out what the medication side effects are, and oftentimes there's even like Coumadin. You have to be careful even with certain foods they don't recommend. So if the person wants to work with their doctor in down dosing, find out what herbs can have that same action as the medication, and maybe downstep the medication while increasing the dosage of the herb. this should be done under the doctor's guidance. You do not want to ever take somebody off their medication. There are some medications that if you take them off cold turkey, it can cause detrimental effects. Now, generally speaking, most anti-inflammatory herbs or mild decongestants, analgesics, which is pain medication, herbal, are okay. There are some that are blood thinning, like willow bark is slightly blood thinning, like an aspirin is blood thinning. And so you don't want to take aspirin and white willow at the same time because you could thin the blood too much. Always be cautious of the skin and to see if your elderly person is bruising easily. That can be a sign of a rutin deficiency. And citrus bioflavonoids are excellent. They have a wonderful broad spectrum vitamin C that includes rutin. And that seems to help with what we call capillary fragility, where the capillaries will burst just by like touching something. My sister, for example, can't hold a grocery bag without getting bruised. So, there are some things that you should be cautioned on. And later I will show you some books that are helpful in understanding different ailments and what you can use supplements for. Good nutrition is the key. And, prevention is always more important than, it's like closing the barn door after the horses escape. It's better to prevent it than it is to go chasing after it and try to fix something that is run away already. We always want to find out, especially with elders, what their vitamin D level is. Taking vitamin D is really important. Vitamin D is responsible for over 400 functions in the body, and especially important for fragile bones, for the immune system. So it's really, really important, as well as omega oil and something to support their digestion. These are things that should be taken on a daily basis. And of course, water and fiber are really important. So when do you want to see the doctor? Well, if you are, I handled most of the situations. My children did not go to a doctor every year. I was personally against vaccines because of an issue we had with our younger son. And I realized that he could not tolerate vaccines. And so we just figured, okay, it was not good for one, it probably wasn't good for the other. And so we just stopped. We just beefed up their immune system and made sure that when they had a childhood disease, that their immune system was high, that they got bed rest, that they got broths and helped their bodies heal fast. Severe allergic reactions to food or insect bites, you do want to make sure. Now we have something, Nature Sunshine has something called Histoblock, which is a natural antihistamine. And, if a child gets a bug bite, it's a really good thing to have on hand that you can mix in a little applesauce and help them have the lessened response of inflammation. All the mast cells aren't producing like crazy, or if they have runny nose, that springtime, your child is affected by pollen, then start them on, if they're, depending on the weight, you can take that weight chart and determine how much dosage per what's recommended on the bottle. But, you can make them a lot more comfortable, make the outdoors a lot more friendly, if you are dealing with allergies. Now, I have found that usually when people have allergy problems, they have a digestive problem. So always address the digestion. Watch what the person is eating. Maybe they're eating too much sugar, which causes their immune system to be less. So when there's a wild animal that bites a child, or an unknown animal, you want to take them in. More than likely, they're going to get a tetanus shot, and you want to read the literature on tetanus. Make sure that they've down dosed the tetanus shot to the weight of the child that you're bringing in. A lot of times a shot is a shot is a shot, no matter what the weight of the individual is, and that can cause problems on its own. So severe burns, more than what you can handle with like a lavender salve, third-degree burns, broken bones, puncture wounds, deep cuts, and we don't want wounds to become infected. I created something when my children were growing up, and I called it a boo-boo spray, and it had herbs that stop infection. Later on, when Nature's Sunshine started carrying silver, I added silver to it, and it really is a wonderful healer. And I also include Distress Remedy, which we're going to talk about in just a little bit, on the benefits of having Distress Remedy for trauma. So prolonged diarrhea or explosive or persistent vomiting, especially where there is abdominal pain, irritability, and fever. Diarrhea for 10 to 15 hours can cause dehydration. I'm going to talk later about charcoal. If you went into a hospital, 9 times out of 10, what they're going to give you is a slurry of charcoal to help adsorb any toxins. So any fevers over 104, this thing about getting your temperature taken wherever you go is just crazy, because if your immune system is working, you should have a low-grade fever. If you're fighting an infection, that's just normal. Now, yes, you shouldn't be out and about. You should be home and taking in liquids and teas and getting bed rest and things like that. But you should not be taking an aspirin if you have 101-degree temperature. That's just slowing down the ability for the immune system to work. You can be over a cold in 24 hours. There's no reason to spend 10 days miserable. That happens when you take these over-the-counter medications that stop the immune system from working well. Now, poisons such as household cleaners, gardening chemicals, drugs, and even house plants, first of all, they shouldn't even be around. If you have somebody that may get into that stuff, you shouldn't have it around. I've done lots of classes on natural bug killing sprays and different things that you could spray and not have this potential harmful situation occur. So you do want to call Poison Control Center immediately. There have been times where children have taken down those scent cards that people hang on their mirrors and chewed on it. That's toxic. Those are extremely toxic. And even in the air, those so-called air fresheners are toxic. So do not buy them, do not get them, do not smell them. If you get into an Uber or taxi and they have them, have a plastic bag in your car and have them put that thing over the thing while you're driving it, riding in their car, because it's not healthy. So If your child isn't showing signs of improvement and you've been working with different herbs and that, and you don't see anything happening within a 24 to 48 hour time range, then you need to go and get professional help. So, yeah. Now, these are some of the books. I especially liked Robert Mendelssohn's How to Raise a Healthy Child in Spite of Your Doctor, because a lot of medical doctors are, what they recommend is to protect their license. You know, they personally would not do what they recommend, but they have to recommend it because otherwise they're concerned about being sued, and this is their way of making a living. And when they lose their license, then not only do you lose the ability for a good doctor to be taking care of you and your family, you know, you change their reputation forever. It's just sad. So that's a really good book, Raising a Healthy, Happy Eater. So if you have somebody who is a picky eater, and this can be elderly as well, as a person ages, they lose their taste and nothing tastes good. So ramping up the taste buds, this often is a zinc deficiency. If you can't smell and taste, oftentimes you're low in zinc. There are blood tests that you can take to determine whether or not you have a zinc deficiency, but zinc is an important immune system builder. It helps the immune system fight viral replication, which means that when you breathe in a virus, it stays in your head for a while until it can replicate enough to go into the other areas of the body. And if you don't have enough zinc, it stays in there for that 4 or 5 days. If you have zinc, it knocks it out, and you oftentimes have no symptoms. You've dealt with the virus and you don't even know that you did. This is also a really good bestseller book on raising healthy children. And this one is Eat Real to Heal. You know, a lot of times our food can be our medicine, and I firmly believe that it's important what you eat. Now, you know what? Modern medicine isn't always necessary. I personally don't agree with these well baby checkups. It's just a way to get your child in there and get them vaccinated. And that's okay. If that's your belief, that's okay. I just would caution you to do your research. Go on VAERS, VAERS.com. And that's a vaccine injury website that tells you a lot of information. Again, it gives you information on how to avoid vaccines legally if you choose to do that. It gives you information on how you can detox from certain vaccines. And so it's a very helpful website. So that's V as in Victor, AERS.com. So you can handle a lot of things like minor injuries and cuts. A lot of times just a great big hug is all that child needs, and a Band-Aid. But I have put silver gel on things just in case there's dirt in there. You wash it out, dry it, put some silver gel and a Band-Aid, and they're good to go. Now, occasionally headaches or upset tummies, there's wonderful herbs that you can do. Just even doing a massage with some peppermint oil on the back of their head can relieve the headache. Upset stomachs, a little mint tea, or, you know, there's a lot of different things that you can do to help your child. And just being there and letting them know that they're okay can go a long way. So there is, you know, self-limiting viral infections, colds, flu, cold sores, all of these things are wonderfully handled by herbs, and getting a little knowledge of what herbs can do. So, and like I said, sometimes a good snuggle is all they need. Now, many times when you go to the medical doctor, their first thing will be to give you either an antibiotic or painkiller. Neither one actually help produce health. Most respiratory congestion and sinus problems, ear infections, coughing, and minor sore throats are viral. And antibiotics don't work on viral conditions. They're for bacterial conditions. So there are lots of things like elderberry that really do seem to ramp the immune system up to handle viruses. So, viruses and bacteria is like the difference between a basketball and a golf ball, and the virus is that golf ball. It's just so small. And, people think that wearing masks is going to protect them, but most of the time the fibers in the mask are just too big. It's like trying to trap a mosquito in a chain link fence. It's just not going to work. And there's lots of research that backs that up. And if you want to know about that, I'll be happy to send you links to the truth in what's going on. So you want to avoid giving children antibiotics or elderly if possible, because that messes up their microbiome, and you need to make sure that you're re-inoculating with good bacteria, because antibiotics kill all bacteria, whether it's friendly or not. And so you want to make sure that you're reintroducing good bacteria into the gut so that you don't end up with diarrhea, and that causes another problem. So probiotics, always have them on hand. It's very important. You can put them in the freezer. They'll be fine in the freezer. But on the rule, if you're not doing fermented foods, you need to make sure that you're taking probiotics on a regular basis. So again, don't bring down low fevers, because it's just not healthy. You're slowing the immune response, and these fevers are generated to stop viral replication, and they support the immune system. This is the immune system burning out the toxin, and that's really important. Make sure that you're taking D, C, and zinc. There are chewable zincs that you can that children can take, even if they take one a week, just to keep that zinc level up. And this would be for older children, not for little ones. You can take that chewable zinc, put it in, crush it, put it in some applesauce, and feed it during the week, a little bit at a quarter teaspoon at a time for little ones. There are ways you can get zinc into little ones. It's not the best. It's very metallic in taste, and so hiding it is not always easy. But there are a lot of children that we find are zinc deficient, especially if they're challenged by neurological conditions. The zinc is very beneficial for them. So if the fever lasts more than a couple of days or gets worse, 104 or above, and you're not able to get it down with a tepid bath or an enema, then you're going to want to take them in. And, you want to make sure that you're doing the right thing, and that Child Protective Service doesn't knock on your door for some stupid reason because some neighbor thought that you were misusing you're not going to the doctor often enough, according to them. So avoid suppressing symptoms. If the child is got runny nose, that's the body's way of getting rid of toxic mucus, and that's beneficial. In fact, sometimes you can make a tent and have steam coming up in and help the body eliminate this. It's better than having that congestion in the chest causing coughing and unproductive coughs, because that mucus can't be broken up. We're going to talk about some herbs that help to break up mucus and make it easier for the child or the elderly person to move that energy. So avoid symptom relieving medications like, Tylenol and cough suppressants. You have to be really careful about those. There's a huge base of alcohol in a lot of them. And like I said, I'm not a fan of giving little ones alcohol. I'm not a fan of giving little ones aspirin, because aspirin can cause bleeding. It causes perforation of tissue. And that's where ulcers come from. That's where irritable bowel. And in little Black children, it can cause sickle cell anemia. So you want to make sure that you're not causing more of a problem by trying to relieve something that should be over with in 24 hours. So make sure they're drinking plenty of liquids, encourage good tasting teas, and, make it so that I would not do orange juice or juices high in sugar. So you don't want to do that. Flavor the water with some very gentle teas, lemon tea, or a little bit of ginger and lemon, a little bit of mint, those type of things. Those are what's going to be helpful. You can mash up a bit of fruit, throw that in the water, and swish it around and flavor it that way. But fruit juice most of the time has corn syrup in it, and I'm not a fan of corn syrup. So cool steam will sometimes break up that mucus, especially if you're atomizing it with eucalyptus. So that using an essential oil in a diffuser is often very helpful for that as well. Now, you know what? Everybody's different. And if you choose to give your child vaccines, make sure that you're reading the insert, that you don't vaccinate the child if they're dealing with a cold or flu. Teething, when a child is teething, their immune system is down. You need to be helping support them with good nutrition and some vitamin C, different herbs that support the immune system while they're teething. Vitamins like C, D, and zinc prior to a vaccine can make a huge difference. So also detoxing after the vaccine with some alternative herbs, which I will go over in a little bit. I'll go over some specific herbs. So don't allow doctors to give children too many vaccines at once. They line them up, and never in nature do you get more than one illness at a time. You never had measles and mumps at the same time naturally. And what makes them think that you can add pertussis and mumps and measles and all of these different things to the same vaccine and not challenge the immune system to the point where it depreciates the whole thing? Can cause neurological concerns, which are far more detrimental than having the measles. So you have to follow your own conscience in this, but all I can say is be educated about it. So let's talk about some herbal remedies for kids and elders. I'll go back to this very important, wonderful herb. astragalus. Now I'm going to go off topic for just a minute, because astragalus is wonderful for women going through menopause. When you're having these hot flashes and that, astragalus really helps with climate change, and when your own internal temperature gauge goes haywire, it can be very calming for the body so that it doesn't keep you awake during the night. So a lot of times taking a couple of astragalus capsules at dinner can help you through, but I have other videos on menopause and estrogen, and so you can email me and let me know if you're interested in more guidance in that path. So astragalus helps to boost the immune system, but it isn't a stimulating. It isn't strong like echinacea. It's just mild. It can be taken on a daily basis. It actually is quite woody. So it has, you can shred it up. It's a great fiber. It mixes with applesauce very well. It's particularly helpful to keep the lungs healthy when the air is cold and dry. So I highly, highly recommend this for the elderly. It is something that they can take as a food every single day to support better health and immune support. It's pleasant tasting. You don't even know that you're taking it. A lot of times you can open up a few capsules, put it in soup, and you don't even know it's there, but it is supporting and making that soup a lot more nutritious for you. It makes a tasty syrup or glycerate. You can add it to some not so tasty herbs and make it more palatable. It can be cooked with rice or soup. Now, when you do that, generally speaking, you take the sticks of astragalus, cook it in the soup, and then when the soup or the rice is ready, you pull the strips out. And so they're like tongue depressors. When we went to China, we saw these little ones teething, and they'd be chewing on this. And I thought it was a tongue depressor, and it was a slice of astragalus. And they'd be chewing on it, and it would get woody, and their saliva would be masticating that mucilaginous and supporting their immune system and helping get that tooth to emerge as well. So it's a great, great herb. I truly love it. Black walnut is my friend. Both my husband and I have our own bottles of the liquid that we keep on our medicine chest because it can help when you have a sore in your mouth, when you have tender gums, if you've been to the dentist and your gums are irritated, it helps to tone the tissue. It's just fabulous. And if you have a pet in the house, it is a great antiparasitic for kids and pets. Now, I would recommend opening the capsules and making your own glycerate out of this. Black walnut hulls are a strong natural source of iodine. So it's wonderful for, here in Michigan, we don't get much iodine. We don't breathe it in from the sea. And if you're doing sea salt, then you do get some of that natural iodine, but it is difficult to get on as much iodine as we need. And so this is a great land source of iodine. So give it to kids, do a spring and fall anti-parasitic cleanse that both the kids and the pets get. In the liquid, you can drop some of the liquid into the pet's water and swirl it around, or you can drop it into now it is an alcohol tincture, and so you might want to do the boiled water and let it cool down method for animals. But anyways, we use it a lot. It's very, very beneficial. Actually, black walnut can it stains your teeth, but it actually makes teeth white. So it stains the teeth, and you brush your teeth, and it actually helps to encourage whiter dentin. So it's also helpful for viral infections like cold sores. It's been used. Uh, People have taken just the liquid and dabbed it on, and you can mix it with a little bit of L-lysine and some slippery elm and make a little paste out of it and put it on, and at night, the next morning it can be gone. I have had sores on my tongue or whatever, and taken the black walnut, swished it around, and the next morning it was totally gone. It's just like a miracle. So it kills bacterial skin infections like impetigo. So again, you can make a salve out of it and rub it on the skin, and you'd be surprised. I like to add some silver gel with mine, which just amps up the antibacterial effects of it, and antifungal. So it's great for athletes' feet. I think everybody should have this on hand as part of their first aid kit. So it works both topically and internally. Now, catnip is a great herb for settling tummies and colic, especially when combined with fennel. It's also helpful for colds, fever, restlessness, and irritability in children. And actually, a little tip, I've had people who were trying to quit smoking and take 2 catnip capsules 3 times a day and have found that it really makes a difference. There's something with it that discourages the taste for cigarettes. So it has a mild antiviral action. It tastes great, so it can be used as a tea. It's mildly antispasmodic. So when there's a lot of coughing going on, to sip on some catnip tea really can help calm that down. And this is especially good for those dry coughs where they're very unproductive. And this is a great remedy for that. Now, chamomile, we all think of chamomile as a traditional remedy for fussy children. It does calm the nerves. It's a great tasting. The only caution I have on this is that if people have allergies, you might go slowly on this, because chamomile belongs to well, it's all pollen that you're making the tea out of, is the bud, which is all the pollen. It's this part right here, and the petals fall off or shrink up, but this is the basic part of the remedy that you're taking in. So that's the only caution with the herb chamomile. So it helps with viral infections like colds and flu and fever. It's very, that should say, soothing remedy for intestinal inflammation. It can help children sleep when given at bedtime. Another one I really like is the Roman chamomile essential oil. Now there is another chamomile, blue chamomile, and that one is not recommended for children or elderly. That is a much stronger chamomile. So the Roman chamomile is the one that I highly recommend. You can diffuse it at bedtime. You can put a little lavender in it if you want to, but while the child is sleeping, it can be helping with antiviral elements. So it provides a calming effect and can be mixed with massage oil, 10 to 1 drop, and massaged onto the chest or the back, and also the bottoms of the feet. So if an elderly person doesn't want to do a full kind of massage, you can do a foot rub with it. It's very relaxing. You know, I know that if an elderly person is in a home now, it's very hard to even visit them. So that's a kind of a sad thing. So now, charcoal, especially activated charcoal, is what we're talking about. I have a video that I made. It's a very short video on making a drawing salve with olive oil and charcoal. It's great for removing splinters or getting toxins out. So this would be something that you could put on a bite or a sting and help remove the stinger or toxin. It's not an herb, but I highly recommend that people keep this in their first aid kit. I prefer to get it in the capsule form. That way they're measured out. Everything that it touches will turn black. It's really quite messy to work with. So that's why I like the capsules. They're measured out and you can use them that way. Yeah, it's pretty tasteless, but like I said, if you went into, if you had poisoning of some sort, this would be the slurry they would make. They would mix up some charcoal, maybe some slippery elm, and help adsorb. So it's more or less like a magnet rather than a sponge, where it actually will take the toxin, draw it through the intestinal system and out in the bowel. So it's helpful. I've stopped diarrhea within a half hour of taking charcoal, and it isn't something that will plug you up. It only works if there are toxins to be drawn. And so I took 2 capsules, and within 20 minutes, the diarrhea that I'd been experiencing for a couple hours was gone. Now, I usually take it with slippery elm. So I take 2 capsules of slippery elm and 2 capsules of activated charcoal, and it really works like a charm. It can help draw out jaundice from the liver with little ones. They don't need a lot. You can put wet a nipple down and, like a pacifier, and dip a little bit of charcoal in and have the child take it if they're dealing with a lot of diarrhea, especially this explosive diarrhea. It can really be helpful for infants. So chemical poisoning, I think I mentioned that. And the poultice for insect bites, I mix with aloe vera gel, but I actually prefer the colloidal silver gel, which can act as an antibacterial at the same time. So dandelion, get out there in the springtime and pick those dandelions, as long as you know for sure that they haven't been sprayed with anything. Dandelion leaves are especially nutritious. Young dandelion leaves can be tender. They can be cooked like spinach. They can be put in salads. I don't know that I'd want a whole salad of them, but mixed greens, it's really delicious that way. I've used the flowers. I've made dandelions and scrambled eggs before. The flower itself is very good. You can pick apart the flower and add it to salads. It's a very sweet tasting and delicious flower. So that's one of your first edible flowers that comes out, like violets and those type of things that come out. such gifts from God. So the root is a gentle alternative for skin eruptions and rashes, dermatitis, detoxification after vaccines. Now, I've never been really successful. I've never had a root that big. Most of my roots are just little teeny things and they're not worth cleaning. I would rather buy it in a capsule form. So it's slightly bitter. So whenever you have a bitter, then you generally are supporting detoxification of the liver. And that's always a good thing, especially in the spring. Spring is a good time for cleaning, especially in your own body. So using something like dandelion is really beneficial for the liver. I think that's why we see so much of it in springtime, and the more you see, the more you need it. So, so dandelion flowers are excellent. If you don't want to do the leaves, pluck those flowers and try that. Now, elderberry is fabulous. It tastes great. It makes a great syrup or glycerate. You can use the darker the berry, the better. You would not want to pick something like that. You want to make sure that they're ripe. Unripe berries are not beneficial at all. Plus, they're very bitter. So it's a really wonderful herb. I like it in, I take it in a capsule form, 2 every single day to support my immune system. And it is a food, so it can be taken every single day without harm, or you don't need to be cautious about it. It's one of those mild decongestions that helps to clear the sinuses and the lungs. It's a great remedy to take, especially in spring, to prepare you for pollen and the wind that blows around in March. So yeah, very beneficial, and especially great in children's formulas. Now, echinacea, there's some people that feel that echinacea is mild enough that you can take every single day, but actually the root is very intense. It can be, so it depends on what part of the plant that you're using as to how intense it is. The flowers, the petals themselves, you can make a tea out of those and they can support immune health. And there's something that you can do on a daily basis. But the root itself, I save for, like, I just got a cold, that's when I'll do heavy echinacea. So dulse is another way to get that much needed iodine, and helps to support the immune system, full of trace minerals that are also beneficial. Just a little bit goes a long way. You can make, this is something you can add to that nut butter ball. That would be very beneficial for children. And it helps to create strong teeth and bones. So it's a really good source of iodine. Garlic oil is wonderful remedy. I've taken, actually opened this up, cut it in half, and placed it behind the ear for ear infections. If you have that dizzy feeling, sometimes there's a little bit of water trapped in the sinus canal and the eustachian tube, and that will draw that toxin out, and overnight. It's just a really amazing thing. But garlic oil, you can hold the capsule, warm it up in your fingers, and then pierce it and drip it into the ear for earaches. It's very beneficial. I also have a video on showing how to make a mullein garlic oil for the for the ears. If you take it with echinacea, it's great for fending off bacterial infection. It is helpful for viral, fungal, and parasitic infections, and in the digestive system and respiratory system. So older children can swallow. We have a tablet that is chlorophyll coated and has all of the allicin in it. That is the active ingredient when you get unscented garlic. You're actually removing a great part of the active element of allicin. You can actually take garlic. This is a great experiment. You can take garlic and rub it on the foot, pad of the foot, and within a very short time, you're breathing it out. So, it does exude through the respiratory system. So that's why it's really good and fast acting. Now, licorice root is wonderful for the adrenal glands to help with sugar cravings. It can be very beneficial for especially younger children. You can make something taste really good by mixing a little bit of the root in the tea and help it. But for the elderly who are on medicine for high blood pressure, sometimes you have to watch, make sure that you're taking the blood pressure on a regular basis when taking licorice root, because it can affect the blood pressure medication. So there's generally a caution when you're doing that, but it's very good to and helpful for dry coughs and irritated throats. It's a wonderful anti-inflammatory. Now, lobelia, one of my all-time favorites, again, something that should be in everybody's medicine chest. It is a strong herb, and it can be applied topically to relax cramps. It can be applied to the chest, the breastbone, to relieve congestion that leads to asthma. So it helps to relax the bronchioles. People have used this a little bit in a tea and rubbed it on their chest, and where they were using their inhaler 4 or 5 times a day, could drop it down to once or twice a day, and in some cases with repeated use have actually been able to eliminate their inhalers completely. So it's a wonderful, wonderful herb. So repeat internal doses every 10 to 15 minutes until relief is obtained. So if you're sipping on a tea, by the time 15 minutes are done, it's really amazing. Now, I had some young girl in who was doing vomiting until she was into her dry heaves and could not stop the vomiting. And I drizzled some of the lobelia on her neck while she was over the toilet bowl and just kind of rubbed it in. And within an instant, she was able to stand up, turn around, and say, "What did you do?" Because that fast, it stopped the spasms that were causing her to vomit. And then with her mother's permission, we had her sit and take a sip a little bit that was in water. And by the end of 15 minutes, she was all better. Her color came back. So it really is something to keep on hand, because you don't know when an emergency is going to happen. And so this is one of the things that is highly recommended. Now, if you take too much, it has been known to cause vomiting. And so this might be a good thing if you've taken something and the best recourse is to vomit. So if you called the poison control and they say, Epicac or something to make sure that they're vomiting whatever that toxin is that was ingested, then you could have them squeeze the liquid bottle into their mouth and make them throw it up. Or have a bowl and be on your way to the hospital. So, Oregon grape, oh, this is fabulous herb to have on hand in case of if your child comes with some kind of a skin eruptive condition like chicken pox. Soaking in a bath, you take the whole 2-ounce bottle and squeeze it into a bathtub with a little Epsom salts and maybe something to make it bubble, and have the child sit there, and it's amazing how it can shrink up the pock and assist in the healing. So it helps to clear the lymph when a child is congested. So you're taking a couple of drops in some warm water and have them sip on it. But this bath thing is magical. So it is definitely something you want to have on hand. And I'll leave a link in the description below for where you can get some of these products. Red clover is a mild alternative with a fairly pleasant taste. It's just a beautiful flower. It's a little different than the white clover that you might find, but even the white clover has been beneficial for mild detoxification. This is used as a blood purifier for children with skin eruption. So if they're having measles or something like that, it can make the condition a lot milder if you're using alternatives like red clover or dandelion. It also is beneficial to detox from a vaccine, and it's helpful for dry coughs, can be made into tea. I've had, there's some cancer websites that recommend red clover tea on a daily basis if you're going through chemo, or even if you've decided to handle the cancer naturally. It's just a fabulous herb that can be used and is quite mild. It can be used by anybody. I don't know about infants, but most people. Eucalyptus essential oil, dilute it with a carrier oil and apply it on the neck and chest for congestion. It's sort of like the natural version of Vicks VapoRub, diffused during the changing of season. It can help get your immune system ready for pollen time. It has a strong camphor scent that can help with when your breathing is blocked. It can be used on the feet in a dilution of 15 to 1 drop of the eucalyptus, of massage oil or aloe vera. Adults can handle 10 to 1 dilution, so they can handle it a little bit stronger. Putting it into a diffuser at night when you're dealing with a cold is really, really helpful. Red raspberry leaf is a mild astringent for children. The leaf, not the berry. And generally speaking, you want to pick the leaf before the berry shows itself, because all of the energy goes into the berry. So trying to get this leaf before it flowers or before the berry forms for sure. It use it to settle the stomach. This is a wonderful herb to take during pregnancy. It is really, really nourishing for the uterus, but it's just really an all-around wonderful herb for children through elderly. So especially tasty with mint. Now this is slippery elm, which is, if you strip the bark off of the elm tree, it's that inner bark. Very, it's mildly nourishing. It is a food grade, so it's something that can be taken every day, couple of times a day. Very helpful. It's been used for children that have failure to thrive. So it can be mixed up like a cereal in warm water and given as a cereal. It eases intestinal irritation, diarrhea, dry cough, can be mixed with applesauce, yogurt, or put it in a smoothie. It yeah, a little bit in a diaper can actually be help with diaper rash. You can make a salve with lavender to soothe irritated skin. So if somebody has like bed sores, taking the slippery elm and lavender and silver gel and make a paste out of it and put that on the bed sore and let the air get at it is really very, very healing. So now let's talk about some formulas. We have something that is an antispasmodic ear formula. Those of you who like Nature's Sunshine products, it's called CBG formula. It has black cohosh, chickweed, passion flower, and valerian. Now this would be for a little bit of an older child, but great analgesic for anybody dealing with pain, earaches, great for the elderly. If you're going to put it in the ear, you can warm it to the body temperature, and you never put anything in the ear unless you've warmed it. And the best way, of course, is putting it under your arm, or if you're going to use the garlic oil, holding it in your fingers until it's a little bit warmed up, and then piercing it and dropping it in. There's a wonderful blood purifier formula that includes the red clover, burdock, dandelion, Podiarco, Oregon grape. So most of these I've talked about, and those are found in the formula called BPX, which can be made into a syrup or a glycerate. It is so beneficial for a lot of the things that we talked about earlier. Now, catnip and fennel is together in a liquid formula. It is, it can be a little bit, can be put on a pacifier. It helps to stop hiccups, really wonderful for that. It helps to calm a fever. You don't want to eliminate the fever, but you want to make that child as comfortable as possible. And that would be really, really helpful. Elders seem to like the flavor, and it helps with gas because their digestive system has slowed down. If you add chamomile or peppermint, it can make it even more effective for both fevers and indigestion. Now there's a wonderful children's cold and flu formula, elderberry gummy. Elder people love it as well as children. The elderberry defense is the one that includes vitamin D that I take all through the winter to support my immune system. You can open up the capsule, mix it with applesauce or yogurt if you don't want to do the gummy. Yeah, it's just one of those really wonderful herbs that include that medicinal mushroom and all the things you need that I basically talked about before. Now, children's composition, I haven't talked about yarrow, elderflower. I did talk a little bit about peppermint, but this is a formula that you can buy the dried herbs and create a wonderful glycerate or syrup with these beneficial herbs. Now, there's and the Chinese called it wind heat evil formula, and it's Nature's Sunshine has it as a VSC, and the herbs in it are especially beneficial for as an antiviral or herpes type infection. So great for chicken pox or shingles or any of those type of pox type infections. And it you can apply it topically by taking the liquid, mixing it with L-lysine and a little bit of silver gel, and apply it topically to help dry up the pock. It's very helpful for that. So, stress remedy, another one that needs to be on everybody's medicine chest kit because you never know when trauma is going to hit, and it's so beneficial. It actually helps to bring you down into your center where you can breathe better and think more rationally, and supports emotional balance. So it's great for any age. I've given this to infants. I put it on the bottoms of an infant's foot, and seeing them relax physically. Great for pets. It's great for just about anybody in the family. So you can place it under your tongue and leave it sit there for a minute, and then just swallow. You can make it into a spray, like I mentioned, with lavender or Roman chamomile, and you can disperse it through aromatherapy. It's really a very, very good general non-toxic distress remedy. Now, this is a wonderful herb to take during the springtime when the allergies season is very high. It's got boneset, fenugreek, horseradish, and mullein in it. Nature Sunshine calls it ALJ, or if you're doing the capsules, the name is seasonal allergy. And it's a great expectorant and decongestant. The liquid can be used every 15 minutes, and it can help a child expel mucus from the lungs and sinuses. So if you're finding out that there's a lot of congestion, but they just can't get it going, this ALJ is fabulous for that. And if you take it ahead of season, it will help reduce the allergic reactions. Great for Cooper's coughs, and when you add a drop or two of lobelia to the formula. So yeah, I love that formula. So Jeannie Burgess is a herbalist that is well loved, and she's created a formula called Stress J, and you can get it in both liquids and capsules. It has passion flower, feverfew, hops, and chamomile. Very, very calming. It's a wonderful nervine that helps the nervous system. So if you've gone through a lot of stress, this is a great formula for that. And I love formulas because if you took something just by itself, it may hit a few factors. But if you take something that's in formula, it's so broad spectrum, it's definitely going to give you some response quickly. So then our final herbal is the chewable papaya and peppermint tablet. It's very tasty. It can be used as an after dinner mint. Elderlies love it, and it can help settle their stomach. So it's a great after meal digestive. So I hope that you enjoyed today's class on herbal medicine for children and elders. It was a little bit longer because I wanted to combine the two spectrums, winter and spring. And if you have further questions, be sure to email me, drmary@bornforhealth.com, or leave a comment below. Be sure to give me a thumbs up, share this video with those people who are helping maintain the health of a child or an elder, so that they can feel more capable of supporting these children and elders in doing things more naturally. So I hope that it's been a good class for you, and that you will share it with other people. And this is Dr. Mary for the Health of It.